Hey, welcome everybody. I'm Tim Wood, editor of Builders Merchants News. We've teamed up with Knauf UK and Ireland for this roundtable at BMN's London headquarters on Tuesday the 9th of September. The construction industry is undergoing significant transformation, with installers facing a host of challenges and opportunities. This debate will explore a range of issues impacting installers today and the collaborative role of manufacturers, merchants and industry stakeholders in addressing these challenges. The discussion will be structured around 6 key questions, each delving into a specific aspect of the current market dynamics. Today's discussion will feature in a multi-page centre spread in a supplement in BMN's October issue, alongside features submitted by businesses within roofing, insulation, plasters and rendering. This debate is being videoed and the content shared across BMN social media, Knauf UK and Insulation, and hopefully the other debaters as well. All comment will be treated as on the record. If anyone wants to say something they do not want published, please let me know beforehand. So before we start, it'd be useful for everyone to introduce themselves and tell what their role is within the company.
Sure.
Daniel.
Afternoon too. I'm Dan Whiteland, National Accounts Director for Knauf.
So I'm John Cave from the E.H. Smith Group. I work mainly in bricks and facades, also the BMF sector chair for bricks, blocks and landscaping.
Giles Bradford from Bradford's Head of Sustainability and the BMF Chair for Sustainability.
Paul Midgley, Market Manager for Trade at Knauf.
I'm Trinny Jones, I'm Managing Director for SWM Builders Merchants and also TJ Services, which is a dry lining contractor.
And I'm James Hipkins, Managing Director at Emery's Builders Merchants and also Regional Chair for the BMF Midlands.
Okay, thank you very much everybody. Does anyone have any questions before we begin? Nope. So, okay, we'll crack on. Here is the first topic of debate. What are the biggest challenges facing installers in the current market? And there are plenty of them. So would someone like to kick off with that particular question?
Yeah, I'm happy to start if you want.
Come on, Paul.
So I guess the first thing that springs to mind is commercial pressures that the installers are facing. So whether that's cash flow due to increasing costs, materials and labour, making balancing that cash very difficult. Also with the new Building Safety Act, that you can no longer flip specifications to alternative manufacturers. So again, they can't necessarily adapt as easily as they would in the past to changing requirements or pricing, etc., pricing constraints. And all of that, I think, links into the struggle that there is about the installers keeping up to date with regulation changes. So that how aware are they with what those changes are, but more importantly, what the impact on them has. We all know the impacts of the Building Safety Act, causing delays, with 75% of high-risk building projects being rejected at Gateway 2, as just one of many examples of things causing delay out there. So, yeah, that instability in the financial market, I think, is causing a few challenges for.
I think some of that stuff is compounded with the current slowdown of the market, having to navigate those regulatory changes with those mounting cost pressures in a market that's slowed down. It's like a triple challenge, all of which is very difficult for not just the installers, but I think for every element of the supply chain or project life cycle, find difficult to navigate.
Does that not represent the opportunity, though, for the installer who chooses to embrace this and work out how they can make it work for them? And therefore, kind of why we're having this conversation is how do we help that person of making that decision who's likely to be the successful installer and therefore actually a preferred customer?
Yeah, sure. I think, where there's challenge, there's opportunity.
I think the implementation of some of those has been one of the biggest challenges people have faced, because when you've got something with clear guidance that you can understand, then you can adapt your business model. I think one of the biggest challenges of Building Safety Act the concept, I don't think anyone agrees with. The concept is something that the industry needs, but the implementation has meant that everybody, including the contractor in the chain, doesn't actually know what's expected of them because they've not been told. And to implement a new round of legislation without assisting people in the compliance of it, that to me is a massive challenge to everybody involved in any high-risk buildings.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And I think there's a lot of grey areas still unknown about it. And, until doing a lot of research and that for this debate, apart from it being driven from contractor-wise and obviously through regulatory measures, the amount that we've actually got as a merchant, and I think a lot of smaller contractors, there's still a lot of unknown about it all. So it's the exact thing about what we're doing today, to raise the profile of it and actually try and ask a few challenging questions as to how it can be simplified, because I think for any of these things to work effectively, it's got to be kept simple. Yes. Otherwise we end up with these hold-ups. Yeah.
I mean, that's excuse me. The slow housing market right now is probably the biggest hindrance to any installer. We are down probably 20%, 25% on turnover as an installer. With new legislations and regulations coming out, it's hard to keep track of because you're busy trying to find work. The market has become very, very competitive. You're going back to manufacturers, going back to merchants and distributors to get better deals, to try and secure work. The rates are very, very low. However, comes to labour, the prices are rising. So your labour costs are going up. You're getting some savings through material chain, but you're still not winning. We as a company, we lose a lot in ratio compared to what we used to win. So I think the market is the root of the problem right now. If we had a good market, then yes, we would put the money into the training, find the information, the insolvencies rates at the moment as well are strong. So, recovery of debt owed for works complete. So yeah, it's not a great ride right now, and it's been going on for 18 months, 2 years. So it's band down hatches and ride yourself through until the better days come. But we need the government to do some action to get the confidence back in the market.
Is it not that, we're talking about the market here, and I know we're going to talk about skills. So the challenge, I guess, is that we can't control the market. The market may or may not do what we hope it will do. The regulations are coming whether we like them or not. So there's an element of how do we, despite the market, help people to navigate the regs. Am I on the right track?
Yeah, I think so, Giles. I think it's almost as if while the market is depressed, it kind of pushes you in the direction of focusing on cost being an issue, cost pressures, when that's not necessarily the issue, is it? It's having to navigate those regulatory changes that are causing the delays paired with other things, which is then translating into cost. But it's easier for people to talk about cost and margin when that's not actually the crux of the issue. It's what lies behind that that's driving that and the behaviours that support that set of kind of that environment.
So I think the opening bit here, when you mentioned about Gateway 2, and I was reading some of this sort of bits with it, but 75% of projects or something held up at that.
Yeah.
Okay, to a layman at the moment on this, how not being on the contractor side or not having had as an in-depth look into it as a manufacturer, what actually is that? What's creating that? What's causing that? Is that the government, or is it a planning issue, a not understanding the regulations, or what?
I think it's a lot of those things compounded. So I think you've got a new regulation which is well-meaning but totally not resourced. So if you submit a building safety submission through Gateway 2, the time scale for it to just be looked at it's growing. At 13 weeks, I think, the last time I saw. I don't know what up to date is. And any project that has to go through that is automatically looking at another 12 months, really, minimum, on the project cycle, which is impacting on the viability of projects. So lots of developers are now looking and saying, we won't invest in high-risk buildings because of the uncertainty that this has created. So they will keep to low-rise. They won't go to high-rise for residential. And whilst that might be good in some areas, when you look at London, which has always been the biggest market in the UK, it has basically it's destroyed the London residential market. Without too fine a point on it, I think the last stats I saw is it's 95% down on the target that it should be delivering. Now that's quite a statistic, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, with the national house builders, a lot of them are working under whip controls.
Yeah.
So they will put the shell up and they'll put the floor and the stairs in, and the windows and the path to the house. It won't fit the internal at all until there is a secure, booking for that house. It has to be signed off at high level. Not talking MD for the region. Above that again, regional MD needs to sign off whip control. So the house builders, we can go back to the COVID years. After that, we've experienced a huge boom in people moving home and buying new homes off plan and everything else. Now you have a street built, and you may not have one secured, so we're holding back investing into that site until the sales follow it. So if we have 3 sales, I'll build 3 more houses. So it's very restrictive. An average development we would be working on would be 1 house a week produced. We're probably looking at 1 a month at the moment. Wow. Do you know what I mean? Maybe 2.
Yeah.
But it's a long way off where we was.
It is.
In a normal road. So the market is causing us all the problem, really.
Yeah.
If a market returns, I think that gives us the opportunity to get hold of everything else. But like you said, with London, it's horrendous.
Yeah, it is.
So
what are the chances of the government achieving this 1.5 million homes?
Less than 0.
I don't want to go political or swearing, but no chance. Because when the market isn't there, we're doing a lot of social housing right now because that is buoyant and that is secure and it's going forward, but it's not replacing the private owners. Do you know what I mean? So to hit those numbers are just crazy. When you got big house builders, big names, reducing their numbers, reducing their staff, cutting their overheads. Well, no chance. The numbers before when we was booming wouldn't reach that target anyway in the glory years.
Yeah. And that's with fiscal stimulus.
Yeah.
Whereas this is just the planning is one element, and there have been some good moves in the planning, loosening some of the schemes that were stuck in treacle. But then things like the BSR has caused a bigger impact than the things that have been solved. And then I think the core problem that a lot of the developers have at that level is that there's not a return. And if there's not a return, they're not going to build. So it's squeezing from every area at once. And then the regulation is kind of the cherry on the top that in certain sectors of the market makes it very, very difficult.
Yeah.
So I'm just going back for a moment to the planning and this Gateway 2 bit, which I've heard a few people say now. Is this something that has to be passed? Does anybody know actually around the table here? And again, this could be an answer in itself that it's so grey. But is this part of the planning process, or is it a condition of planning? Can you do planning and then enter that it has to be satisfied?
So it is the actual process of planning has changed for buildings that are deemed high risk, which is residential buildings, including hotels that are 18 metres or taller.
Right, okay, so there is a specific
criteria which makes a high risk building. and the gateway process. So there's gateway 1, 2 and 3.
Yes.
And gateway 2 is when a detailed planning submission, and when it's detailed it means incredibly detailed,
Yeah.
down to the type and manufacture of the screws and the widgets that
Yes.
hold everything together. But that's got to be done before start on site.
And that includes all of the test certification.
It's
and
almost an
everything like that.
outline planning stage. What used to be outline planning is now gateway 2 for those types of buildings. Yeah.
So, therefore, with the type of thing that we're discussing today, with package and services that we need to understand a bit more as merchanting, but if it's coming from the specification side, then you must be able to have problem solvers within Canalf to do that system. But it's how we then
Absolutely.
promote that, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. It's the role of both we as manufacturers and merchants in the supply chain. The roles that we can perform and fulfill that help the installers navigate that changing landscape, making sure that we provide them the conclusive information from a manufacturer perspective concerning our systems and all the data that's related to them, and then also potentially the role of merchants to ensure that the installers find their way to that information through partnership and collaboration.
Yeah.
And I think if the system was working, it would be, and I think it will, it's a matter of time. And when things do start coming through the other end of the gateway process, it does secure the specification, because it's very unlikely that the specification will change after it's been through the gateway process. So it means that and that's kind of what it's designed to tackle, is where it was lowest price wins, it's now performance specification, safety highest priority, which all of that is right. It's just the implementation that hasn't worked. And I think it's recognised now that it's House of Lords inquiry and all sorts, that it hasn't worked. So it's hopefully, if that can, if you can widen the pipe for the Gateway 2 submissions, it is actually a great opportunity for the sector, for those that put store in specification of product and trying to do to a safe and performance specification rather than just on price. So yeah, there is an opportunity in it as well as a problem.
I mean, without wanting to jump the gun too much, and maybe this will come up in another question in a few minutes, or that we'll talk about. But in that case, again, I'm going to say it's keeping it simple. So I'm going to now go to a PIM sort of management thing, where we're all trying to, at the moment, get within the supply chain common product information. So I know it's been tried with ETIM and other bits and pieces and this, that and the other. But just from an industry perspective, you know, it's been good to see NMBS and BMF and that combining a bit, and then stuff to go out to get set data and set standards, be it a product code, you know, a barcode, a product description, a video, whatever it is. But part of this data trail, sure, there needs to be this specification along with that as well. Yes. That then if you purchase those products, your data is in there and related to it along with anybody else's, that then they've got a thread within all the invoicing, within the whole track, that should be very easy. And we could make that easy for the contractor to be able to do that. But we could actually help as an industry, as that being part of the data held with that product.
Yeah.
And then you form a system from that.
Yeah, and that's a huge part of the changes that we've seen.
Yeah, and the BMF template, the product template that a lot of companies, including ourselves, have adopted, make that a lot easier. But it's also about ways of making sure that everybody's accessing that up-to-date information. So even simple changes on a website, one that we did with our updated website, was that historically, when we loaded any sort of documentation, that document would have a unique link. So if you then loaded a newer version of it, it was a different link to the previous one. So actually, installers, merchants, anybody getting the most up-to-date information is a bit more of a challenge. with the new website that we've got now, whenever we upload a new version of that document, it's exactly the same link.
Yeah.
So you've then safeguarded the information that's on the merchant's website, because
Yeah.
we've shared the link with you in the BMF template. You've used that link. You're always getting the most up-to-date document, and it's about little things like making sure that instead of hosting that on a distributor merchant website or an installer's, even an installer's website, is to use that link.
Yeah, you
Go
need to
back
build
to
through
our
the manufacturer
website,
data.
and we will get that. Guarantees you've got the most up-to-date information.
Well, or you're pulling from the central industry data pool the data,
Or the data, yeah.
Can I ask two naive questions? The first one, we talked a lot about building safety, but we talked about the fact its relevance to high-risk buildings. Actually, sitting here as a merchant based in the southwest, which has not got an awful lot of towns, let alone cities in it, I'm kind of going, how relevant is that to my installers down where I am? And actually, what are the skills they need? And is it just the building safety regulations that are affecting it? What else is out there? What's going on? And my other question, Tim, was really around, we've talked, I think a lot of that conversation, and again, I'm kind of throwing this in to be slightly controversial. So a lot of the conversation is around the developers and the house builders, but the debate is around the installer, the person who's actually putting the stuff in. And I just wanted to kind of come back and just check in with you, Tim, on where you want to take this, because I think there's a very different question to what's the challenge for the national house builder or the person trying to build, a set of social housing flats in the middle of Birmingham against the installer. So whether that installer is putting in an air source heat pump or whether that installer is building using one of your external, building systems.
Yeah.
I think that's a slightly different challenge in terms of the skills we're trying to provide people. Does that make, I'm probably being difficult, but
No, I think we just need to cover the whole area, and we have
Because it
Lon-
trickles down, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, there's going to be different situations in the southwest compared to London because of capacity and the ability to actually build. So, I think what I want to include is kind of get to the skill shortage issue, because I've been in the trade sector for 30 years, and there were problems when I first started out heating and ventilating. There are still problems now 30 years later. What are the main problems of trying to get new people into this industry when you've got problems, rising material equipment costs, you've got supply chain disruption, you've got all these complex and these regulations that are really tough for them as well. Then you've got costs of training. Do they know which area to go down? There's just so many different areas, and it hasn't changed over 3 decades. So part of the question was, what are the challenges? Surely one of them's got to be skill shortages, and that's got to be top of the list. So can we have views on maybe where people are with that, the reasons behind the skill shortages?
I think the fundamental reason is the cyclical market. Because when you've got a market that is at a peak and then 3-4 years later is at a trough, labour leaves the market in the trough and doesn't come back in time for the peak. We've been doing that in ever increasing peaks and troughs, and I think that's the fundamental thing that underlies the skill shortage. Yes, you've got people getting older and skilled people. If you look across a lot of the trades, the demographic of the trades is towards the older people, but a lot of that is because the younger people are the ones that are let go when the market enters a dip. It's more expensive to let the older people go. So it's that the market cycle is against the skill shortage.
I think there's an additional to that, which is that it is that the barrier to entry and the barrier to exit is quite low. So if you were to go down the route of medicine or engineering, the investment you would have put in to actually, as an individual, be able to enter that market is significant. So actually, when there's a dip, you're going to hold on all you can, because you put a whole load of time in place. Whereas actually, when I don't want to belittle the skill of the trades out there, but the reality is that it's not seen in that same kind of professional, accredited, etc., etc. And I think what's going down the track is that we've kind of got away with those on paper low skilled workers for a long time, and then suddenly we've just been talking about building safety regulation, but there's a whole load of other stuff down the line that means you've got to professionalise in order to have the skills to deliver what we're being demanded of from a national decarbonisation, quality. We were talking about quality and all the rest of it, and so we haven't got that background of people who have really any incentive not to leave when it's bad because they've not invested in it in the first place. And they're actually, so if you can upskill people, you can also make it stickier.
But I think, sorry, just with the Labour Party and their increase in national minimum wage and national insurance contributions. I've heard within the industry there are a lot of companies are considering whether or not to take on the apprentice, and that is not going to solve the problem, is it? So what do people think about the future of trying to get people in when you've got a government that's obviously introduced these measures? Yes, it's raising money, but it's not helping industry at all.
I think some of it is changing. I think the opinion that young people have of our industry, and getting past that stereotype of, you know, it's an industry all about carrying lumps of things to a site and building it, and it's all about that intensive labour piece, and it's not. And I think there was a recent survey that I'd read, and it was 47% of young people aren't talked about careers in the construction industry as part of their careers discussion. So straight away we're eliminating virtually half our workforce by not telling them about it. And 28% in sort of the opposite of what you were saying, Giles, are saying that they don't think they can get into the industry as a young person, that there are barriers in their way to stop that. So we're almost putting up some blockers straight away.
The apprenticeship thing is interesting. So I sit on the board for the Green Skills Advisory Panel, which is all around how do we equip the future trades and the existing trades with the skills they need to meet all the challenges that we've discussed for the last 15 minutes. And actually, if you talk to Mike Blakely, who runs it at Exeter College is oversubscribed for trades courses every single year. And actually, the real challenge is that they haven't got is that the construction companies, the contractors, the developers, etc., aren't willing to commit to the apprenticeships to help them go in and do their jobs.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
and we're back to an economical situation economic
It's
situation.
an interesting point, though,
Yeah.
because again, we talk about the skill shortage. We're used to talking about the skill shortage. And I was actually speaking to quite a large London-based bricklaying subcontractor that they will employ several hundred people. And he said, we have no skill shortage. What we have is instability. And that's what means that we don't, and they do take on apprentices, but they would like to take on a lot more. And there are some really good things happening in the industry with skills being promoted to young people. I went to Super Trail. I don't know if you've seen this online. It's phenomenal. Look it up. Kenilworth. And they had, I don't know how many thousand young people watching a bricklaying competition. And the enthusiasm in the room was phenomenal. And it was kind of electric. They were really, really fired up about, here's a trade. They were celebrating craftsmanship. They were showing how they can have a career that isn't academic based. There's lots of really good stuff goes on, and I just don't think it cuts through sometimes in the way that it should do. So yeah.
I think once people are in the industry,
Yeah, absolutely.
it's attractive in the first place. Once they're in, they don't want to leave.
Yeah.
They see all the benefits, but it's just getting that message. A lot of it is to do with perception, though, as you say, isn't it?
It is definitely, yeah.
I think there's still a desire of young people to get into the industry. So again, we don't do anything at like GCSE. So a lot of our young people at school till 16. Why is there not a GCSE alternative around the built environment? And so instead of waiting till they've left school and then it's like, well, there's the apprenticeship. Well, I'm not quite sure that's for me. Actually, I think there's a group of young people who would relish the idea of getting involved in that GCSE that gives them a bit more of a potentially more practical type GCSE course that, again, everybody learns different ways. There's some people learn by being hands-on, not sat at a desk. So it gives them that opportunity. And as a GCSE, the syllabus, you can tailor it to lots of different areas of the built environment. So you're giving somebody a flavour in a 2-year period of all the different options they've got. Yeah. Enthusiasm to go with that in the art
Make it appealing. Yeah.
It's then that big stepping stone into, okay, I'm not just thinking about construct. I want to go into that industry and I want to go and do that.
Yeah. And actually, I think Giles mentioned if you're going to go through a qualification to be whatever it is, a lawyer or a doctor or whatever, you're not likely to leave. I think we need to value trades to that level.
Yes.
And it happens in other countries. And then you go to Germany and you've got a tradesman is seen as the same level as anyone else in the construction project, because they're the ones that actually make it happen on site. And they get different levels up to master tradesman, and the master tradesman can be the same as a GP. You know, it's and has the same level of kudos.
I think that's an interesting point that you make there, John, because I was going to ask the question, do we think that there's still a negative perception of people that are academically challenged that you would ordinarily, or you associate generally people that go into a trade, or as someone automatically there's potentially academically challenged, but that's not necessarily the case. But is that perception still there that often that kind of works as a bit of an undercurrent to that?
I think when you get to the schools advice, if careers advisors do advise anyone to go into construction, it's because they don't know what else to do with it.
See what I mean?
I think there is that,
right?
And that's through lack of knowledge.
Yeah. So then that kind of, to the point you're making, that it, certainly in the UK, perhaps that feeds that negative perception or association with construction and acquiring a trade and then moving into the trade industry.
Yeah.
Where essentially we know that's not the case, right?
No.
I think what's important here is going back to that point, which is that what's coming down the track, like it or not, is coming down the track. All of it requires upskilling in order to meet the requirements that are demanded of, and therefore, what do we do to help them meet those requirements? So whether they are academic or not is kind of immaterial. How do we, as sitting around this room as representative of the materials sector, the merchants and the manufacturers, how do we help them to go from the kind of not so professional or perceived not so professional what they do to it being professional? And actually, if you look at trying to retrofit a house or get it to a particular standard or anything, it's pretty scientific. So suddenly this is not a back of a fag packet. And I mean, I've done a construction project recently, back of an envelope, a quick couple of calculations. This is now in-depth, serious science to get it right.
So that's what we've got to try and get across, right?
Yeah, absolutely right.
But I'd also sort of say with that is that, okay, that's great, but by what we're adding here, what we're talking about in terms of getting things more safe in the building things and things more thermally efficient and things better built, a lot of it's still down to you're still going to be using similar materials, but the people that are actually fixing them, yes, we've got a skills shortage in terms of trades, and I definitely agree that still within the education system it's very much looked down on, or it's a sort of a second choice still for an apprenticeship, and that really needs to be promoted through schools. It really does. And I like the way of there being a course for more hands-on and doing that, and it just being part of the syllabus. Maybe I think that's a great idea.
I think it's great as well, James. I don't think we're going to change GCSEs right now, but actually sitting here, we all live in communities that have schools, further education colleges, and so on and so forth. So actually, let's not try and boil the ocean and create a building GCSE. But what we can do is go, right, how do we engage with schools?
Get people into that or interested in it, not be the second choice or, we can't think of anything else as a careers guy. So what about building? So I think that is one issue. But I think another thing here, without wanting to then de-skill it, yes, a shortage of trades doing that, and they're saying there isn't necessarily a shortage, it's actually a cyclical economy and everything else. But it's getting people... It's the product and system that we're putting together. We still need to keep that as an industry. So yes, we're going to have people who can specify it as architects or as in whatever planning sort of format like that. But the people to actually fix it, if we're giving them a set system, and again, we're helping that, we're helping the contractor, we're helping through that. That's where we can help as a sector, because it isn't going to be any harder to fix one type of plasterboard than it is a fireproof one or a system with the correct screw fitting and the correct battening. And these people don't need to make those choices on site. They need to be able to fix them together properly, but they don't need that overburdening or over complex thing of putting that in. So we needn't overcomplicate it either. And I think we have a responsibility from that side to make it as simple as possible to meet these things and keep them and get momentum up.
And I think as well as keeping it simple, it's about things that can improve efficiency as well.
Yeah.
So help speed up installations, and whether that's small changes in products. So for example, we've got an airless spray finish solution that is quicker to apply than doing a skim finish, and isn't as plastering is a very high skill to do properly, whereas the spray finish doesn't need that high level in years of training to get that good finish, but it speeds up that process because you can cover more of an area in a day, etc. So there's things like that, as well as getting more people in at the bottom. It's about how can we all as manufacturers look at our systems, look at our product offerings, and how do we make those either simpler or quicker, and ideally easier to install. And by doing those things, you remove the chance of mistakes and things like that, which helps. Going back to the origin of this, that takes a cost out of and a challenge away from the installers, but it also helps overcome that somebody needing as long training to complete the job.
Question 5, I know we're jumping ahead, but it asks the question, how can merchants and manufacturers help to bridge the gap? Can I ask around the table, as merchants and manufacturers, what you are doing in that case, just to get a feel about how you're offering some support to the installer?
I can kick off with that. So for ourselves, we continue to look at apprenticeships and increase the number of apprenticeships, both within our production facilities, but also in our office and in other teams. So recent times we've had apprentices in our marketing team, for example, similarly in HR and that. So it's about having those apprenticeships across the disciplines, if you like, within the business.
What about installers though?
They weren't, no. But we're, as a manufacturer, we don't have those installers. But I think there is that challenge of how do we get?
Yeah, I'm a believer in, been in the trade 32 years in dry lining now, and I use the same guys I'm based in just the other side of Bristol, just on the Welsh border, and we have Portishead. We got the forage factory now, Seniati Tex. Don't mean to swear, sorry. But they had a training school. Okay, fabulous facility. So you get some guys who are interested in industry, you could send them to the training school, and it was free of charge. And they would go in there, they would do different elements of the dry lining rod, and then obviously not plumbing or electrician or anything like that, but they do all the installing. And it was great because they come out of there and they actually enjoyed the experience and had an idea what we needed to do and achieve. So then we would take them on then and, take them on, and obviously depending on the length of the course, whether it's taping, jointing or sticking or tacking, you could choose the area they wanted to be of their strength. And that was really good. I mean, we really didn't suffer anywhere as then. You'd have a guy on site labouring for you, minimum wage, carrying plasterboards into a building for 6 months, gets the gist of the carrying, says, heavy stuff, being lumped around, and then you had something more about him. Do you know what I mean? So we go to this course and do this training, see what you think, and you come out of that. So that was a really good way to help with the shortages. And I think taking another level to that is maybe we can't rewrite the GTSEs, but if every manufacturer had a training facility and encouraged, the younger ones to come in to the safe environments who are not on the construction side, the 16 to 18-year-olds to come in and have that training, I think that would encourage people in. Guys with a lot of money on site, mostly in our industry, in the dry lining rod, most of our guys are self-employed, and not many earn less than 50k a year. It's sought after. They can earn the money. My problem with my workforce, they're getting old. I've got a couple of young guys coming. I've got a guy on now. I employ so there's no training for us as dry liners, so I employ and train myself. So I put him with a subcontractor. I pay him minimum wage, and eventually, which makes me want to talk to him when I go, it would contribute towards having a trainee with it. Do you know what I mean? So we self-train. in the Forest of Dean, we have a construction school. A company set it up themselves with the help of the Gloucestershire County Council. Excel skill steps. They specialise in groundworks and brickwork, and it's very successful. And they're doing a great job. I know them personally myself. I send my guys there. So if I got someone who's doing really well and he's got a bit of management about him, I'll put on a skill steps program, and they do his CITB in the city and guilds levels, level 3 up to 6. And that gets my guys, going up the ladder as well. But I wish we had something, just talking about dry lining here with Canal Present for us.
And I think
that would be great.
That's almost the challenge of, I guess, where our sites are located. So we also have training schools at both our sites, so Sittingbourne and Immingham. And we offered the CITB training courses for not just dry lining, but a number of our different products and systems. I think there's probably more we can do to raise awareness and promote that, and that is an ongoing thing that we need to look at. And obviously, if you've not heard that from us, then there's more scope we can do there to help advertise that.
We could do one somewhere else, like Newport, couldn't you?
Well, interesting to say that.
We do.
Coming soon.
Coming soon, hope so.
It's also partnering with third parties as well. So in your neck of the woods, there's a training facility, Construction Skills Wales, which is Cardiff based, and again we've partnered with them now on our L's finish that I mentioned earlier, and they're now doing the CITB training because we appreciate we can't get with where our sites are. They're not exactly easy to get to, Sittingbourne and Grimsby areas, so we need to try and find other partners and other ways of making our training option available nationally around.
And I think there is part of where the merchants can help, and where so you need scale. You need to scale this training and the awareness of whether it be a new build system, a new way of doing it, or whether it be core skills. So from our side, we've got heavy specialism in bricks and facades. We've invested in a centre in the centre of London, where all the architects are for the specification side, but we're just opening one in Birmingham, which is quite a big old industrial unit, which is all about the wider sector. It's a venue, you can get 300 people in, and it's to look at these challenges in the market and provide a place where manufacturers can meet our customers, that we can facilitate. And I see merchants as facilitators. Yes, we break bulk and we deliver, but we also know both ends of the market. We're the people in the middle, and I think there's a role for merchants to facilitate some of this knowledge coming out. Now, we've got to be careful about our facilitation, because again, I'm sure we'll come on to looking at some of the ramifications of Building Safety Act. That as a merchant doing that, we really need to understand our product area, so that we are just passing on manufacturers' information, and we can also pass on multiple manufacturers' information for comparison, which again is a valuable thing for the sector. And I do think there's a big opportunity for merchants in this, in what seems to be getting a more highly regulated industry, by supporting the installers, the trades, in getting in contact with the manufacturers. And a perfect way to scale that is through the network that's already there. And that's what I see as an opportunity.
Creating merchants as almost as a learning hub, if you like.
That's right.
There's an additional advantage to that. So if we go back and talk about the traditional tradesperson who actually didn't like school, left early, mum and dad, right, you're not sitting around here, go and get a job, off to the local building site. They didn't like school, so I will extol colleges and all the rest of it, but there are especially those that are already in the trades, You're going to go back to school? No, I'm not. I didn't high school. I don't want to go back to school. Well, I'll tell you what if we teach you in a builder's merchant? What, I forget what the numbers are, 6,000 branches across the UK. So you guys say, well, we've only got 2 sites and they're only accessible. Well, you haven't. You've access to 6,000 sites. Well, to whichever of those sold Canal products. But you've got all that access to, as you say, exactly as you say, it's the conduit, and it's just about making it the hub. And actually, as you say, an opportunity for merchants. We look at it, we've talked a lot about the market and it's tough. What else can we do? Well, let's make damn sure we're the conduit for that, and then we're a really, really valuable place to be.
Yeah.
Well, Building Careers website from the BMF has got tap into a job, and it's got all the areas, or if you tap into a company, it's got areas where there are vacancies, and you can find out all about the industry itself, and and that's why it's got its take up of members. I don't know what the figure is now. I think it's about 200-300 out of their membership of 1,000. So the BMF is actually trying to encourage more people into the industry. But it's a lot of money. It's spent a hell of a lot of money over 2 years, £600,000 over 2 years, and it's not going to be able to keep funding it for that long. So it's asking its members to come on board and help, and to take over so it's an automatic facility for installers. What about e-learning? I mean, there's e-learning. You've got video tutorials. Do any of you do that? Because of obviously an installer, you don't want to be travelling all over the country attending courses, etc. Do you offer e-learning?
We do. I think it's an important component of the broader picture, and certainly when you're looking at encouraging younger generations into the industry, it's the method of delivery that is most familiar to them. I think a stream. But of course, as you can't just have theoretical e-learning when you're talking about learning something that's a physical, hands-on, trade-based profession. But I think it certainly has an important role to play in terms of helping to support that broader journey, and also helping to access the hearts, minds and thoughts of the younger generations that we are trying to get through too as well.
But there's still that thing that we just said a few minutes ago about actually not liking school, not liking sort of learning as such in that sort of situation. I know maybe electronic learning a bit more interesting than that and on a tablet, but it's getting hands dirty, it's getting stuck in, having a go, getting a taste and a feel for it, and that's the whole thing.
I think the stuff that has the real impact is face to face, and it's getting your hands dirty, and it's actually
having a go,
really having a go and understanding it. That's really.
And is that a bit of a training and roadshow thing, like Giles, you just said, with all the access to all those outlets around the country? It doesn't just have to be at the main offices, but you've got this roadshow coming to Stoke-on-Trent, and it's a vehicle, and we dry line that out or whatever, and it's a 2-day thing or whatever it is, and perhaps an actual engagement. But I think the hands-on thing and doing that. And probably a few of our customers could do it as well. I'm aware this is being recorded, but no, but it is a sort of an upskilling and looking at doing that properly. And people many times have got used to doing a certain way, and actually with things enhancing and moving forward, there is a better way of doing this, and there's a way of upselling product and better products for it. So, but is that a way of doing it, getting a bit more hands-on and something available?
I think there needs to be a collaboration more with colleges and schools, if you can get people in, actually sit them down, give them a demonstration of what they're going to be installing, what the company can offer them, the career itself, and getting them in at that age, sort of 15, maybe 14, 15, rather than them coming out and making their choices at 16. You get in there first. I think that's...
Which is a really important point you made, Tim, because I think I was going to draw us back to something that Trini said, some of the points he made around what can we be doing as manufacturers in terms of providing that space to have that practical learning, and then also the retention of that skill in the industry, where you provide a pathway for them in terms of that progression. But the thing that goes hand in hand with what we can do as manufacturers is what Tim's mentioned there, something that I don't know if it's perhaps kind of faded away a little bit. I think it was something that was more prevalent a few years back, but manufacturers collaborating with those educational institutes so that you can provide resource and you can provide knowledge into those official kind of pathways that are kind of baked into education, So then you are getting, I guess, from a manufacturer perspective, in terms of brand, you've got the opportunity there to create a degree of familiarity with your product, with the trade, which is an upside. But then at the same time, you are also providing commercial relief to those educational bodies in exchange for that brand recognition and familiarity. So I often think that's something that's perhaps fallen away a little bit, that needs to be reinvigorated, I think.
I think there's still elements of it there and about, and partnerships with colleges. I think some of the challenges on making it broader is whoever's incumbent with that college is often providing materials potentially free of charge.
Right, yeah.
And so then the colleges are always nervous about speaking to a competitor, because if I bring in a competitor, even if it's doing a course that's not related to what's already been offered, there's that fear of that free of charge stop, which, let's be honest, in the economy, that makes a phenomenal difference to these educate, but they're so scared of losing that funding for that free of charge material that they're worried about broadening their offering.
There's actually a
And
really
that's a
lovely
real
example
challenge.
in GSAP where there was perceived shortage of skill around EWI, which obviously going down the track in terms of retrofit. And there are 3 EWI manufacturers, system suppliers, whatever you want to call it, who are members of the Green Skills Advisory Panel, all of whom said, right, we could worry about what you've just talked about, or we could collaborate. And actually they built all the courses in collaboration. They all supply the materials. And actually what they found is that the sum of the parts was way more powerful than all fighting each other. So I think there is a little bit of growing up and saying, actually the most powerful plastering, dry lining system is going to be you guys accepting that there is you and there is the others, and actually let's work out how we do it together.
Oh, I
Completely agree.
Completely agree. It's trying to almost unpick what's already been done to get to that point.
And it's making it interesting and exciting and accessible. And again, you've got to tune into, get mentioned that Supertrail thing. That's what they did phenomenally well. It was they'd almost made rock stars out of these people who were tradesmen, and they had followings of people asking for autographs. It was incredible, and I think that just different way of thinking about it is going. What is actually going to excite and interest a young person into getting involved? Yeah, it might be the money they can make, but it's usually a lot more than that. It's usually, if someone is interested in craft, is good at doing something, using their innate skill is something that we need to encourage and want people to aspire to.
That's what we're saying, John, is we need to make the trade more streamable.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, I'm out of my comfort zone here as well, don't you worry.
Yeah, but you're effectively saying that you can be an artisan in our industry.
You can.
Yeah.
And it can be aspirational. Yeah.
So we kind of separated the view of what a merchant could do and what a manufacturer can offer. How can the two work together to ease the skills crisis?
I think if manufacturers come out with a training facility or something regional or a road show, of as merchants, then we can promote that. We had the Resin Drive guys come round and do a road show with us for a day, and we brought lots of people in to see how the Resin Drive works. You know what I mean? Which is a very big success, and went on then. We brought orders, so that was great. But I think with obviously the skill shortage, we need to try and capture, like you said, the younger generation and make it a bit fun.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I've come from that background. I was a tacker. That's where I started. I was a farmer before that. So I've gone from the bottom to the top, so I know the journey, and I've had a hell of a journey, and it's been great. So it's a great industry to be in the building industry, construction industry as a whole, in every level is great. We just got to try and tell people about it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's the problem. We don't publicise ourselves enough. Everyone just thinks it's hard work. Oh my God, carrying that.
You've got to go in the winter on the site.
That's right. It's not. It's great.
Well, I think that's one. So I think it's hard work, or as we discussed earlier, it's seen as an unprofessional and therefore not so attractive a career.
Absolutely,
You
yeah.
only go there if you fail at school and you can't do anything else. Well,
Yeah.
actually, you kind of got to turn that around. And it's a conversation I have with various people as you walk down this street. What's been done on this street is phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
So how did that happen?
Yeah.
And it's kind of trying to contextualize it.
Yeah, great point. I think James touched on something earlier on with one of the other questions around, to simplify it, it's about, as manufacturers, creating our space where those learnings can take place and working kind of almost symbiotically with the merchant network and merchant entities to get that message out there and make sure that there is a pathway of easier access to those spaces for those that have got that potential interest.
Work with the merchants and then they out to the installers. Do you know what I mean? So if you had that facility and go through the merchants and then through into the stores, do you know what I mean? And then, they said, we do need to capture the younger guys somehow, but that is another level again, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? And they say that needs to be probably a joint effort in the drywall industry to capture that audience together. Would be great.
But again, you can almost we can still do that together at a branch level. So going back to what you were saying earlier, Giles, there's those 6,000 outlets that we can jointly do things at. So it's whatever you want to call it, taster day or whatever. And are you under 18 and you want to come to a taster day? Absolutely. Here's the address, here's the venue, here's the time.
Make it a competition.
Absolutely.
Put prize in.
I think
Get it fun. That's the way.
it's clear about the difference between a labour shortage and a skill shortage.
Yeah.
So interesting, there's a paper out just now being written around retrofit, and the report suggests there's not a labour shortage, there's a skill shortage. So you need to be slightly cautious around. We absolutely want to attract the young guys in, but we also need to make sure that those that are in the industry are fit for purpose. And actually, the FE colleges bite manufacturers' hands off to, be supported to bring up new stuff. But then if I look at what goes on, I'm probably speaking slightly out of turn here. But if I look at what goes on between the buyer in a merchant and the manufacturer, it's a pretty transactional conversation. So how do
It can be.
it can be, but interesting. So if we know that there are these things that have got to be done to meet all of the stuff we talked about at the beginning around Building Safety Act, Part L, Future Home Standards, and I know that you as manufacturers are working on the solutions to that. How are we making sure that in that conversation, the effectively buy-sell conversation, we're not just going, we just want to do more of the same. Right, guys, actually we've got this thing here that's going to solve a problem that your customers don't even know they've got yet, but they have got it. And actually, if we can bring it to the front, so how do we work together to bring those new solutions through the merchant, because that's the place where people are going to see it and they can touch it, they can feel it, they can train on it and all the rest of it. So I just think there's something around just elevating that conversation and making sure that we're talking about the solutions to the customer's problems at that level to make sure we're then really prepared and the merchants feel supported in it. No merchant's going to go, I'll tell you what, take that new stuff on risk and we didn't sell it because no one knew we had it, no one understood it, we didn't understand it. That's the reality of what happens right now.
And I think that's the beauty in the merchant environment, is there's more people than in distribution coming into your branches, looking for advice, looking for you, there's somebody behind the counter or somebody in there to steer, help and support. Whereas I think distribution's become a lot more transactional these days. Whereas, us going back to that learning hub that we were talking earlier, where the person behind the counter has that knowledge that can then start educating and talking to the customers, it becomes that snowball effect, because you're going to then, as manufacturers, we help support you to train those people up. You're then going to get repeat business, because we all want to go back to somewhere where they're knowledgeable and supportive. Absolutely. People buy from people. That doesn't change. And if you can help have that discussion in branch, I think that benefits everybody, because there's that longevity and repeat business coming back, which we're all here for at the end of the day.
Because interesting. So if you go back to the conversation at the beginning, it was all around the fact the market's pretty tough.
Yeah.
So what's going on in merchants right now? Are you scrabbling for everything you can get? Are you looking to the horizon?
Yeah.
And actually, I think what you've just said is, if we really want to solve the installer and the trade skill shortage, the starting point, from the point of view of the representation in this room, the starting point is to upskill the people in the merchant so they can be confident to have a conversation
Yes.
around those things. And that's the other thing, is you can line the shelves with shiny new stuff that solves all of these Part L and all the other problems. But if I'm on the counter in a Bradford's and I don't understand it,
I'm sure it's sitting there on the shelf. Yeah.
That's right.
So
Totally agree.
How do manufacturers and merchants? That's the answer. But how do you get them together? Do you hold workshops?
I really
seminars?
do like this idea of the sort of like mobile workshop nearly or whatever. Or a roadshow type thing where it's not even just your counter staff and your people serving the materials at a merchant, but it is also looking to the contractors and end users. And it's like, well, there's an open day of this on here. There's a taster day, and involving the tech college, the school, the whatever. There are alternatives here.
And I think those things.
But
come
actually,
together, don't they?
you bring the merchant staff on, because I'm sure if I went talking to half of my guys about HRBs and gateway 2s and this that and the other, they'd be like, well, what are you on about? Just let's get some more plasterboard out the door and sales and off we go. So I think there's a definite need there to get the message through about what we're talking at this level now, but all these sort of challenges that way. But it's got to get through to the merchant and the general merchant staff to reach our customers, to reach the contractors.
Yeah.
But that collaboration and pulling together with the school, I do like that idea. If that's something that could be, invested in or investigated and looked at, I think that would be a winner. And like you say, John, making it a bit of fun. We did this in Warwickshire or whatever. This and the other. Stoke, you can beat them, can't you? Whatever the little challenge is, and whatever it is, or down the southwest, they're having a go at that and. Come on, we're better than them, aren't we? And just a bit of a thing, or and even a bit of e-learning competitive thing with that you go on and see how you've got on. But it is to engage and involve a bit like that. Because at the moment we can't change the economy, we can't change it politically. We all know we want more stimulus that way. But I think what we all talked about to start with was this cyclical thing going on, and there's never that continuity. So we've got to somehow track that in and try and do something together. But like Giles says, we've got these outlets, but I know that half my guys would not know that, and this has got to be disseminated from us and from what we're doing today and raising the profile of that today, so that everyone's getting that message, and it's combined with ourselves as the manufacturers helping the merchants, helping the end users, all the way along the path really.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think probably, I mean, risking bringing us back to our point of origin around the condition of the market. All of these are fantastic initiatives, but it's about how do we land this sort of stuff and make it happen whilst the market is tough. Yeah. Because whilst the sentiment might be correct and the intention might be correct, physically realising or kind of realistically realising this sort of stuff, when there is a depressed set of trading conditions, can prove very difficult, right?
Well, it's what's your priorities?
Yeah,
That's what it comes down to.
Absolutely.
Are you thinking short term, or are you thinking medium long term?
Yeah.
And that shapes really your answer to that question.
Yes.
Because if you're thinking medium to long term, you make it your priority.
Absolutely. Yes.
If you're thinking short term, you don't bother.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you get more of us thinking long term?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed.
By that way as well, all of that training stuff helps that staff retention and stuff like that can also be a challenge at branch level as well. Is actually, if you're investing in somebody's future and you're developing them, making see and feel that,
Absolutely.
that's going to help you.
Get branch staff love product training. Yeah. It's interesting. They know more stuff. They've got something they can tell the mate who needs the advert. It's
hands-on.
I think it is the same the world though. I know in our office when the guys go off and do the taster days and it's going to spend a day down building a wall, doing this, that and the other.
Yeah.
Every new starter comes back buzzing from that day, because they've got hands-on, they've enjoyed it, and suddenly it's like, I see how the stuff we sell now goes together, how it makes a difference, why it's important it's built right, and what that means, and all of those elements that fit together. It's not difficult to make that bit fun.
Yeah, I believe from the younger generation, if they were shown and the hands-on experience of putting things together, we all know to build stuff, don't we?
Yeah, never.
Do you know what I mean? And if we don't build a fun long way, building something on a roadshow or a training unit, I think the younger generation would come into it. I know Excel, the training school, they do so well. You know, ground workers and the bricklaying, and it's just feeding their. And they have a house building business and a contracting business, so it's feeding them labour beautifully. Clarkson Evans, they're a national now electrical company. They have their own training school. Do you know what I mean? So I think there was interest, like Giles said, at Exeter University. There's interest of people coming into the construction industry, but we've got nothing to show.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I can't get them on site until they're 18 and got a CSCS card. And so I can't take anyone out for a little show day. Do you know what I mean? So we need a safe environment somewhere where we can show people what this construction industry is about. And I think that would really bring the youngsters through, because at the moment there's no knowledge. You know, we've got a few YouTube clips and what have you, and you know, and a few TikToks, but we need something physical. Let them have a go. Hey, I ain't hard.
But I think it comes back to what I said earlier on. Once they're in, they're in.
Yeah.
You know, they have a good time. They do all the practicals. They feel the product. They see what they can actually produce at the end of their, well, not in their career, but they can see what they're actually building within the company. They're building houses. They're building, you know, bridges. They're building, you know, major buildings all over the world if they want to. And it's just getting them in the first place, just to say, look, these are the opportunities, but you're up against every single other sector. This is the
And I
problem.
think sometimes we do shoot ourselves in the foot with it, because we talk about skill shortage and these kind of things, and there is obviously a real element to that. But some of that has been kind of hijacked almost to talk about moving it all off site and turning it all into. Now that's also part of the solution. There's no silver bullet in this market, and we can't talk down one part of the sector to talk up another. We need a kind of a better kind of dialogue, really, that says skills are required, off-site is required, all of these things are required if we're to continue to have a market that is resistant to the ups and downs that it comes across. And I think it's far too easy sometimes to use, so I hear the skill shortage being used as a reason for, and again it's kind of got political, to incentivise everything going to off-site. Now that won't, and we can see, hasn't worked because of the cyclical nature of the industry, and we're back to it. But in that period, we've not properly invested in the other bit that we need, which is the skills, because we've been saying, oh, we've kind of lost that battle, let's do it all off-site. Whereas that's not the answer.
No.
Both things are the answer. So, and that, when it gets caught up in the cycle of politics, can be tricky.
I think more focused to the skills as well than the off-site, because that's, you know, got its problems as well.
Oh, massive.
You know, it's okay for generic boxes, but if you want to build, you know, decent-sized homes and different types of homes, then that's a problem there as well. So, it's we're trying to lose our way, don't we, and move across to something else, and then forget the main important thing is skill.
Well, and the merchants, my customers are RMI in the main. They're not house builders. They're RMI.
Yeah.
And best will in the world, off-site RMI is a long way off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you got some challenges there.
It's being filmed. I didn't want to say too much.
But I think, just come back to a point you made earlier about people under 18 can't get onto site and see that. So is there, you know, working with installers we do almost a day in the life of, or some videos that actually it just shows what happens on site? Because it is before I joined this industry, I didn't even have a clue how on site worked. You know, stuff on site worked. Obviously, I know the building comes out the bad and it goes up, but all the the intricacies that go on there, the health and safety elements, and you know, not just the physically building the stuff, but all the safety mechanisms that go around there, ensure everybody gets home safe at the end of the day, and all of that sort of stuff. So it's almost can we almost bring the site to the younger people by using video, by the TikToks, by the other channels that they quite naturally using anyway. How do we just try and make that more real for them, so they understand what it's like out there, that it's not all lumping a hawk of bricks up a ladder and that's what construction is, isn't it? No, it's not. And get rid of some of those wrong images that an industry, a career in construction sometimes conjure up.
I think if we could get someone like Mr. Beast to do a day in the life of construction skill trade, that would certainly switch a few young people on, right? Yeah.
Well, I think actually what's interesting when you come back to him is the amount of gamification in it.
Yes.
And just to have made fun. Mr. Beast is successful because of the gamification, not necessarily anything else. So
Yeah.
I'm not enormously knowledgeable, but I've spoken to people who are.
Well, I think you know enough, John.
But again, you're joking with that. But he can do, I've seen bits before. He's gone off to other countries building homes for new people and stuff like that. Well, it's the natural extension of that to start educating about building those homes and stuff like that. You need the gamification. That's what he's built. He made his money on. But yeah.
Anybody else not doing Mr. Beast is around here? I've not heard of Mr. Beast.
Yeah, I've got a 6-year-old son. That's how I know it.
Right.
Okay. I'm an 11-year-old.
I thought it was an ice cream.
Yes.
Okay.
Took us all a while then.
That's feast.
Oh,
That's it.
obviously can't get down with the kids then. Okay, moving on to what John has described as the ramifications of the Building Safety Act. How do we keep abreast of all these changes that keep coming in, and how do businesses adapt to them and pass on the information that these installers need to do their job properly? It's obviously a lot more responsibility for companies to look after their installers. So, thoughts, please.
Because I don't think that's understood. I don't think the building materials sector quite understands what's coming when it comes to the ramifications of the Building Safety Act. Because the Building Safety Act, Gateway 2 is one part of it. That's what dominates the discussion area. But there is a lot more to the Building Safety Act that does actually impact that advice that we give over the counter. It gets to that level. And we've got to be careful that the advice that we give is the right advice. That is, the chain goes through from the manufacturer through to the end user without any changes,
isn't it?
It's the golden thread. And that will lead to changes. Whether it will lead to them in the short term, who knows? But the kind of legal framework is pointing towards, in kind of medium term, a lot of change in that, and that's something I think we need to understand more. And there's obviously industry initiatives, and maybe you'll come on to talk about some of those, and I think they will really help as part of that, helping merchants and manufacturers join together to get the right information and data to the people that need it.
But interestingly, so I mean, call it the market at the moment if you like, but if you just take our, the white van man RMI builder, he's not talking about the building safety course. So we're all sitting here going, well, we understand what it is, we understand the ramifications, we're perhaps not quite clear on the detail because perhaps the detail isn't clear. But on a day-to-day basis, if I turn to any of the customers that I see on a regular basis and say, come on guys, what are you doing about the building safety bill?
What? Yeah.
So we've got a real challenge in how on earth are you supposed to engage the merchants in the building safety bill when actually their customers are just not talking about it because it isn't relevant right now.
Yeah.
And I think it will take time.
Whose responsibility is it the manufacturer, the merchant, or the installer?
It's all of them. It's a whole lounge.
You've got to make sure.
I think what will happen is, obviously the focus is on the highest risk, as it should be, and merchants' counters are probably at the low end of risk. So once the highest risk stuff is working, the regulation will start working down.
Filter down. Yeah.
And that's when things will really start to change.
So we're talking about, high risk buildings to start with and high rise stuff, and from a planning perspective, from an installer perspective, from a specified perspective.
Yeah.
But then it does need to come down. And as an industry, we've got the BMF, which we've got a link in with government and that now, which is great. In terms of we get information backwards and forwards now, whereas we weren't taken seriously as a whole industry before. So that's in there. But I think we now need to be saying we need to do a combined approach with understanding the regulations that are coming out, because we've sort of got a smattering of knowledge. Perhaps you do more as manufacturers, but I think, like Giles says, you know, if you talk to the guys generally on the counter and you know, white van man coming in, tell me about that act at the moment, and it's like, well, what's really going on? And we're still
I
all
think
very, very much in the
It will
dark. on
probably
it.
take some headlines. Of people being
But that's just
prosecuted
being
for
reactive
it
again, isn't it? This is the whole thing.
to really
And
make
how
people
often
realise what it is.
as an industry,
That's the-
we wait for something to go wrong and then go, oh, we've got to do something about it, instead of just somehow getting a bit of a grip first.
And you're right, because you don't know the subcontractor that comes in and gets served at the
Yeah.
St Austell counter of Bradford's might well be working on a high rise. You don't know that. And so when they say, I need some 100mm PIR, mate, and you go, oh yeah, we've got stacks of that. Well, what they didn't tell you was they needed it to this spec, to this fire retardant, etc. So the stuff you sell isn't at that level.
Yeah.
So that's what you're referring to. And I'm with you on that. There's going to be a point at which they go back down the chain and they go, who gave you the advice to put that
made
piece
that
in?
change?
That, by the way, has just failed.
Yeah.
That's the challenge. And you're right. Do we do what we always do, which is wait until it goes wrong, or is there a way of making sure that actually we hopefully prevent that in the first place?
And I'm going to do a big thing then about data again, then, with information and that contained to a product, to be able to have that traceability, to be able to, with that product code, watch that up-to-date video on it, watch the performance like that, but to have that data spec with it as well. And as that's updated, it's still live with that product. It isn't a change spec, that you can always create that thread that I've heard talked about a few times now, that can be seen through.
Yeah.
So we've got to all solve it from a few different angles. So there's a data and specifications held with a product for its life, and going forward, that's it. And we're using that as an industry, and then as an industry, updating our own staff and educating ourselves, and also to perhaps putting it in a palatable format and easy to look at format for white van man as well, because like you're saying, we're not always sure where that's going or what it's going to, but we've got to at least provide the platform for people to be able to access that information, and for it to be tied with that product and understood. And actually, if our guys are questioned about it, they can find out because it's there and it's understandable, rather than us all going off in different tangents again, trying to solve the same problem like we've tried to do with our PIMs, our websites, or whatever. We've all done this, that, and the other. We've got to have a bit of a combined approach.
So I think the good news on that
to
front,
do that,
James, is as manufacturers, we are very, very much focused, and our noses are pointed in that direction in terms of that data and the accessibility of that data. Paul will probably know a bit more about it. Be at the forefront of establishing some of that stuff for us. But
yeah, so from a digital point of view, I guess there's two avenues that we're going down at the minute. So the first being the MBS platform, which is used by architects for specification and things like that. So again, there's a lot of focus on getting our up-to-date systems. We've spent a significant amount of money over the last 2-3 years on testing, making sure the testing is up to date and robust. And also making sure that all of that information is together and accessible. And MBS is still a work in progress, but we're making great strides on there to have that information available for that end. But then at the other end, for those who don't access that platform, it's about replicating that information onto our own website as well. And again, these things are still being developed and are still being a work in progress. But it's all about having those two pockets of information that match.
yes,
And are consistent
And are linked.
and are linked and up to date, so that no matter which one you go to, you've got the most up to date information, and it's all in one place. I think the challenge that, particularly with our website, comes is that we do our website one way. Other people will do theirs a different way. So there's almost that uniform approach to how do I go onto a website and access that information. So if I want testing, do I just go to documentation and it's all in a simple search and boom, there's what I want? Or actually, do I need to go some of those? I need to go to this bit. I need to go to specification, and I need to go here, and then and so it's that customer journey, if you like, about finding the stuff that needs to try and be better, which is
But I
when
think-
NBS
Yeah.
and that platform, because if we're all on NBS, that is that uniformity of how you go and find information and find that data out. And I think that's important. And also little changes like version control on your documents, for example. So whilst we used to control the background, it wasn't necessarily on the product. Whereas now, all of our on the product, on the brochure side, so all our literature, our brochures, our documents, our DLPs, everything has a version control on it. So we know that when it was first published, we know what version is available, is there, and the date that version was done. So straight away, if somebody's got an old document that they took off their laptop, and they've had it on the laptop for 3 years, it tells us when it was done and the date on the bottom corner. So straight away, we can start tracking that accountability about where did this fall down. Where
Again,
did
I
it
think
go
what
wrong?
I'd try and ask there is that if I want to know about a product and its performance, I'd want to be able to click on the product and I know what it looks like, a video for it, how much it weighs, what its packaging, shipping information is, be it FSC things, and it's chain of custody, whatever. But I go on that product and do it. And I think what has been difficult, and it's somewhat so simple, but you even touched on it there. Where do you navigate to? Do you go to documentation? Do you go to the health and safety stuff, or what spec bits? And I just think we should just be looking at making whatever that product is, we make the product data rich and all in a format that as an industry we can use. And you just know that if you want to know about that product, you click on that product and you'll get that info. And it maybe a link to the other bit. You can link to your website, link to the latest spec with that. But I think everything should be held with that product that goes on, and not be fishing for it in all sorts of different areas that
Yeah.
Well, that's
they
the
can
danger,
find.
right? There's this massive appetite for data at the moment.
Yeah.
Are we in danger of being lost in that sea of data and becoming counterproductive
Correct.
in terms of
Which is why we've got to
helping
keep
people
it simple
understand it, right?
now at this
So-
point.
Well, we started mentioning kind of different types of tradesmen and that visit merchant branches, and I wonder, is there something that we should be doing in there as well, that perhaps where we tailor that presentation of that data in a way that resonates with the various different types of tradespeople, that's dictated by the types of works that they undertake?
Yeah. Because you can
Keep it
point
simple.
everything towards the specifier, which
Yeah.
is very technical.
This is what I mean.
Yeah.
Which is, and again, I'll look at the data sheet and understand about 10% of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's probably most of us around the table, with I'm sure a couple of notable exceptions, will be the same. Hopefully. And I think
But I wouldn't want to go fishing for that somewhere else. I'd want that linked with that product. And I think this is the whole thing, that I want to keep it simple, because whatever trade's using it, whatever person's booking it out on our trade counter, whatever person's looking back at that product in time to come, or specifying that, if it's linked to that product, it's uniform. We're doing it together uniformly, and it's there to be accessed. Otherwise, we are in danger. You've got so much data out there, and this is where I think we've gone way off the tangent in different things. We've just got an opportunity to simplify things, and we've got to keep trying to simplify, even though you've got access to masses of data from that.
Yeah.
But it's all linked to that product.
But I think the complexity comes is we build systems rather than products.
Yeah.
So is there
Yeah.
if I take a plasterboard, one of the questions we get asked regularly is, I want a plasterboard that's got 120 minutes fire performance. Piece of plasterboard doesn't have 120
No.
minutes. It's the whole system behind it, and it's the construction, it's the build up. So, and I think that's what makes what we
Yeah.
do so complex. So I completely
Get it.
agree with you.
Yeah.
Let's have that product information on there, and have that product page as the home of the product. But then I think we also need to importantly link in that system performance, because
Totally
ultimately
agree, but that should be one element of data within that you go, want this, to perform to this, it's part of this system.
But
and
it's
you
where
add to the others.
where does that system piece get held, is because that for me borders on starting to be the MBS platform, where we put all of the different combinations of non-performer partition system with all of our different types of board, and you can build it in all these different ways for this different height and all of that sort of stuff. And because you can imagine there's hundreds and hundreds of different permutations on performance depending on what you need, how tall your wall is, and all of that stuff. So where that platform becomes that for me, but we end up getting very complex very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the challenges we have. And there's no, let's be honest, there was a simple, easy solution to it. We'd have all have done it a long time ago. And it's that war between product and system and the performance. And if I change that standard wallboard and I put fire 2 layers of fire panel in there, what difference does that make? And all of those sorts of bits, that trying to get all of that information into one product page on a website.
Well, not necessarily one product, but a
difficult.
link to that can be within that system, because there will be ways of building that product into whichever system, but there must be a central way to start looking for it, I would have thought.
The only problem with the Building Safety Act is well, no matter what Giles say, we still have polystyrene to that installer when he fits it over 18 metres on a cladded buildings. And the thing that don't stop with the installer goes back to you, comes back to manufacturers. It's worrying.
And it's personal criminal
Head many
liability
people.
as well.
Yeah.
It's not just corporate liability, it's personal criminal
And
liability.
this is the bit where we've almost like a competency matrix. So we spend in our business quite a bit of time looking at all the different roles in our business that are customer facing. What can I say as a market manager versus what can my project specification manager say? And that's not about individual people. This is about the role. And in my role, I'm not giving any advice on how that partition is going to perform. Because I'm not competent to do that. And I think that almost replicating that process as we start to train merchants and get people upskilled in store, that needs to go hand in hand with that training process, so that the person behind the counter knows what advice they can and can't give. And then more importantly, if they can't give that advice, where to send the person to. Go and ring Canal technical helpline. Here's the number, or here's the email address, or whatever manufacturer that is. And because you're right, Giles, that fear of, we need to overcome that fear of getting it wrong and giving the wrong advice too soon, and asking more open questions. But again, that can all be covered as part of training about, don't assume somebody be at the other side of the counter knows more. Coming in, I want some 120 mil insulation, please.
Well, you're putting it. That's the thing. We won't be able to train our kind of staff to that level to be giving their advice. The only training we can give is where to look. Absolutely. There's no way would I want any of that stuff.
No, and it shouldn't be specified. Yeah, we shouldn't be specified.
That's where we should facilitate, not
Yes.
the...
I know a leading companies, companies who've closed businesses because they've done a job 30 years ago. All right, and they worked to a current specification at the time on a high-rise building, right? And they are now liable.
That's right.
Even though they installed it completely, utterly 110% correct, they are still liable. That is crazy. Do you know what I mean? It's very frightening. It's good. It's good. Positives.
And you can't deny that it's a thing that's required. It means just how it then gets implemented is so complex.
It's
so complex.
And that's the bit with the guys behind the counter giving advice. It's knowing
Shortcuts, no desktop.
where to start.
I think if you start at the point of the guys behind the counter know what questions to ask. So not giving the right advice, what questions to ask, and then based on the answers, knowing where to then get that information. And traditionally as a merchant, what do you do when you get to a technical question? You're on the phone to Knauf going, can I speak to your technical department? This is the question they've asked. Can you provide the answer? That's what we've always done. We've just got to get better at it.
And I think that sort of training can be done via a link to the Teams calls, training hours, training few hours. Do you know what I mean? Just to give sales staff the training of where, each manufacturer where to look regards to Building Safety Act. Do you know what I mean? But like James said, let's make it as streamlined as possible, so we're not searching. Do you know what I mean? It's got to be nice and straightforward.
And even that, he's trying to make things simpler. One phone, which is what we have got to now. We have one phone number with a couple of options.
Good.
So you, as merchants, you need to remember one phone number. And then option 1 is customer service, option 2 is technical, etc. And so then again,
I think
going back to
leaders
that
come on a daily
simplicity.
basis asking us questions, don't they? On the counter is like, oh, what do I need for this? And I hear and I said, don't you dare suggest anything. No.
And they want to be helpful. And
We want to help, but you know.
I think it depends how technical it is. I mean, they're coming in and they're just saying, "Have you got something that solves this problem?" Well, yes, I have.
Yeah, but I always say, please be careful what advice you give it. You know, before you even the Building Safety Act come out. You know.
What about the regulatory authorities and the trade association, i.e. the BMF and the buying groups? Do you go to them for information? Is it on their website?
So we various different people and listening to around the table at the start of the meeting, we're all involved, or various people within our organisations involved in a lot of those industry bodies at various different levels. So there's always that ear to the ground in those forums, because I think, that is one of the routes that information comes into our market, is through those industry bodies. So absolutely ear to the ground with those as well is absolutely key. You mentioned BMF as one of them. There's the Gypsum Product Development Association, and we're involved in with our competitors as well, to again give that uniformity and things like that. So I think they're really key, really key in understanding information. But I think sometimes, and going back to your point, John, on Building Safety Act, I don't think it was ever fully explained. It's been a learning as we go scenario, and even if you invested a full-time person just trying to understand Building Safety Act, there wasn't the information there for them to go and get, and so that's meant that implementation of that has been so challenging.
Have you got anybody within the organisation to deal specifically with the British Safety Act?
Within Knauf?
Yeah.
Not just specifically that. We have members of our technical team that are focused on keeping abreast of regulation changes and things like that. But again, it's how much research can you possibly do to not find the information you were hoping to find in the first place. And that's where across the board government needs to get better when they're introducing these regulatory changes and restrictions on anything. Is about let people fully understand what you need.
Well, I think it needs to be fully understood by the regulator first. That would be a really good step.
That would be the start.
When you look at the individuals required to assess a building safety submission through Gateway 2, they don't really exist. It's a new specialism that people are going to have to be trained up on and then recruited through into the safety regulator. And that's part of the reason why there's been such a backlog, is people don't want to put their name to something because of the ramifications of it.
Because you need to be a technical expert across everything.
You need to be a multidisciplinary technical, you really need to know your stuff. And that's not been the role of planning in before. Planning is about a procedural approach to, is documentation in place? This is now a fundamental understanding of how stuff gets built, and is that actually correct? You're a consultant.
But I think what you said a moment ago, Tim, is how, who's specialising in that sort of thing. And I think whilst, to be fair, Brett, the BMF, has been talking about this. He's been banging this lone drum nearly for a good 3 years, sort of saying this is coming on, but I can't give you a definitive answer because with 6 or 7 housing ministers in 4 years, whatever it is, and without that consistency there, I want to give you something that you can take away as an industry. But actually, if he can't do it, and because the actual people creating those regulations can't do it, then we really are scrabbling around still. So it's that we're still desperate for is a definitive answer on some of these things, and for it to be promoted within the industry and back to ourselves, that we can go out with a firm message on it, instead of we've got this lengthy weighty document and it's sort of being debated, last bits of it, where's it going, and there's no consistency. Again, I suppose we're back to this consistency, government, cyclical, regulatory, and it's trying to break that down into a manageable bite-sized chunk for us all to go out with a message on.
But if we consider the representation in this room, I'm going to make an assumption now that as Knauf, you guys are on the best information you've got, designing products that meet the requirements. So whilst there's the lack of, kind of this overarching, what does the building safety bill mean for me as a merchant?
Yeah.
Actually, there are a load of products that support meeting the specification demanded by that building safety bill. So again, I'm not certain we need to worry too much around that piece. What we need to be doing as merchants is turn to you guys and saying, right, let's up the conversation. Why you're clearly doing something about this? What are those products? Where are they applicable? Which part of my customer base are going to really lap this up? And how do we get your product? How do we act as the conduit, the facilitator, as we talked right at the beginning? How do we act as that facilitator to get those products through? At the end of the day, you guys want to sell more of them for all the right reasons, commercial and the fact it's the right thing to do to build to the spec that's required. We want to be the conduit for that. Well, let's be that conduit.
Yeah, true.
Icon.
I think there's also the piece there of training the installers, etc., what to look for. So, for example, how do you read a test report? Yeah, what are the 5 important things to look at when you're reading the test report? And EPDs and other documentations. There's the piece around. I know you're laughing. EPDs.
Well, there's a whole other.
They blow my mind with all the. But anyway, it's about how do people read those documents and what actually are the 5 key bits you need to take on. You don't need all 3 or 4 pages.
Absolutely.
What do you need to know? And I think there's also that education piece as well, and that's where us as manufacturers and others can help with that. So CPDs and things like that. So I know there's we're discussing CPD around how do you read an EPD. And what information do you need to take out of that? Not necessarily relevant for the customers we're targeting today, but your main contractors, your architects, are for them. That is absolutely key. So how do you read that, and how can I compare this one and this one? Can I compare?
Well, and that's his big question, really, is can you compare?
Yeah.
And
let's not get into that. Otherwise, we'll be here till.
Well, again, it strays into the skill of the architect and the specifier and the QSs as opposed to the skills of the installer, which I think really, and interestingly, of course, once they get to the trade counter or they're on the phone wanting to buy something, the reality is it's a shopping list. It's not. There will be those that ring up for advice where they can afford to. If we're talking about projects where the specification has to be the specification and there is no other, the reality is it's a shopping list.
Yeah.
And so the importance is, can they install it right?
But the other opportunity and again, this is for some merchants, again, we have a specialism that has led us down this route, but that specification piece is also an opportunity for merchants. You need a very skilled set of people to actually make something of it, and it's a long-term business. But that I think is another area that as merchants we need to understand better, because there's more opportunity in a wider basket of goods if you understand the specification process of those products, and you can actually be a conduit to that specification process, which then adds value to the manufacturer and to the customer and all those things as well. So.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, I think that's the Building Safety Act covered. Just in many ways. Okay, so should we move on to the Code for Construction Product Information? The effect it's had in your business. Has it worked? Is it working? It was a necessity, obviously, because of the trust, accuracy, and transparency part of it. But how has it been received, and general views, really?
I think it's certainly an extremely important part of what we're trying to do. Is where perhaps it needs to begin in terms of ensuring that the way you're describing the performance of your products is as accurate as possible, as a foundation to trying to make our industry safer. I think it's a great place to start. But in terms of how it's affected our business, kind of specifically, I'll hand that over to Paul. He's been very, very, very much involved in.
He's got his notes
creating
ready to go.
We've got a few notes. I'm not going to go for all of them, don't worry. So yeah, I think Dan Dan touched on it, it's about greater accountability for us as manufacturers for the information that we put out there. So it's about making it robust and accurate, and making sure that any claims you make can be backed up. So little things like what's it meant for us. So we've gone through all of our documentation again and just made sure that all of our claims we can back up. So if we're saying something is resistant to this, have we got a test report or something that is credible that states that product can do that? But it even goes beyond that, because I think it's also about how people perceive and read that. So if I give an example of our Aquapanel indoor product, we used to say it's resistant to water. Now, when you say resistant to water, to most people, they think therefore it stops water going from this side to that side. The product doesn't do that. The product is not affected by the water. So we've changed the way we talk about that product now to say it's unaffected by water, because there's no organic material in that product. So therefore there's nothing for the water to attack. And so it's little things like that, that even though what you were saying before is fundamentally correct, it's also about that interpretation of the end user on what they think that product will do. And that's where CCPI can, with lots of debates and discussions, and can be quite time consuming, because it's not just about what you're saying, is what you're saying about the product correct, but it's also about that interpretation from the end user. So there's been a lot of work gone into that. But again, the benefit for the installer is at the end of the day, they're getting really clear, really concise and accurate information that is, and again, it becomes traceable. So I think that's really important. And then there's other things that we've already touched on that we've engaged with. So the BMF product template that we talked about earlier, the fact we're doing that, the document version control, again, that I mentioned earlier, the increased testing we've done to make sure that our data is as up to date as it possibly can be, and as stringent as it can be. We don't want to refer to a test certificate in 2004. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure that all our test data is as up to date as we possibly can. And that takes time. We're by no means there. We will continue to invest in our testing for years to come to make sure our data is good and robust, and expanding that amount of testing. But if we're going back to the CCPI piece, all of our non-load bearing partition systems are CCPI accredited, which is a good chunk of what we do from a drywall perspective. So there's still work to go in the background, but that was something that we've put a lot of energy in. But there's also that the CCPI, they come back and they audit your business on a regular basis. So we've just gone through, at the moment, another audit where they're speaking to a huge number of people across our business with questionnaires to make sure that our processes, our procedures are really in place to make sure we're capturing all of this. Because CCPI isn't about being perfect here and now. This is about having the processes and products and procedures in place to make sure you are on that journey to get to that destination. And there's always things with any process, there's always things that you can improve and get better on. And I'm sure if you sat down with some of our documentation, if you spent long enough, you would eventually find something that you could come to me, you know what you said there, you've missed a bit. Yeah, we will have done. But it's about that is that journey towards that goal.
Does it give you a competitive advantage knowing that you've done it and there are others that still might not have adopted it?
That's a yes and no. Yes, because we can say all of these systems are CCPI accredited, and as a business, we are on that journey with CCPI. But because of some of the things we've stopped saying, so enhanced performance, what does that mean? Superior product. All of these words, we stop using those unless we can say superior performance against XYZ based on this. So if you can't say that, we've stopped using that language. Some of our competitors who maybe aren't as engaged with CCPI we deal with multiple products, so not necessarily drywall here, but in other product areas, haven't adopted CCPI as much. So their product is still superior.
But
they have enhanced, and so therefore, as a punter, when I read that. Am I, with my CCPI hat on, I'm questioning it, but as if I didn't have, nobody's meant to be our CCPI, I'm not questioning, oh, that's better, isn't it? It says enhanced.
They also have to spend money
Yeah.
on CCPI. So you've eaten into your margin to a certain extent on doing the right thing.
And so, yeah, that's why I think it's a double-edged sword. Should we do it? Absolutely.
Right, it's
That, you know, it's absolutely what we should be doing. You know, we have a duty of care to make sure that the claims we make about our products are correct, are accurate and transparent. And, you know, this comes down to safety and people's lives. You don't mess with that.
Well said. Anyone else want to?
Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox.
No,
Have
it's
I?
fine.
You can have a microphone to drop.
You don't want another Grenfell Tower, do you? So,
No, it's interesting listening though, because
Yeah, it
obviously
is.
how you've gone through that, I've not perhaps fully understood what it means. And how long have you been part of that now, and how long have you been working on it?
It's been a couple of years now.
Yeah.
As the journey, and you know, because it is process led.
Yeah.
And getting those robust processes into place takes a bit of time. You know, we've never deliberately claimed anything that isn't true, but it's just about me tightening up those processes in the background, to make sure that if something is said that's incorrect, you have the processes in place that then catch that, and you can then backtrack, go to, okay, what version of that brochure did we made that claim? Okay, we need to go back X amount, and we can then start quantifying where that problem occurred. A, fix it. B, train, if necessary, the individual to make sure that doesn't happen again. C, inform any customers if we need to, you know, about, look, this information was incorrect, and go from there.
I think as an industry, I mean, that's interesting. It's interesting to listen to your journey with it, and you say you're not expecting it to be right at this point, and that it will get better. It's part of an actual journey. It's not you've got it tick box done and forget about it. It's about keeping that current. But I don't think it's understood that much yet throughout the industry. So whilst you've got certain big manufacturers like yourself there, and of course you go in with the big players and big systems to start with to do that, but I still think that's yet to disseminate down through the industry and be understood really what's going on
What
with this.
training's available to help you to raise awareness?
That's a good question, and one that I wasn't involved in that start of that process for Canal, so I'm not sure what information. Obviously, you've got the pack with all the clauses in, and what you need the understanding of what you need to do at each clause. Once you start going down this route with CCPI, they are there to support you as well. So there are people you can speak to seek clarification and things like that. So but in regards to, is there a pack that you get at the start that gives you all the details? This is what you need to do. I'm not sure on that one.
There are a dozen clauses, aren't there?
Yeah.
Good reason.
So we're looking at them, yes, yeah.
And it's different for
It is
merchants,
different for
because I
merchants.
think
It's all
you
about
have
how
less
you-
clauses,
Exactly.
don't you, as well?
It's about being the conduit. Yeah.
Right.
I have a document on my email. I can have a look at it if you want.
Don't quote me on that, but but I know it's less clauses, because that
Yes.
absolutely right. You don't need that product claims.
But it's all
piece.
about
That's-
making sure that the information we're passing on is correct. That's
Yes.
the key to the merger aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that, I think the bit as a industry we need to get better at is how do we notify everybody of any changes? Because we get it. I know there were there were companies that would just go onto our website, they'll take that picture, they'll copy our text, they'll just take our information off our website and put it on theirs. Whose then responsibility does it become when I update my information? How I don't even know they've got my information, so I can never notify them that they need to do something. So how do we overcome that? And there's that piece of communication on the impact of what people do and to help understand. If somebody comes to me and goes, "Can I have some help with product information?" Absolutely. My life's now easier now. I go, there's the BMF template. It's got everything in there. All of the imagery, links to everything. It's all in that one document. So that makes life easier. But even before that, it was come and talk to me. And yes, you can have our marketing information. I will update that, and then I know where I've sent that information to.
Isn't it regularly updated though, the CCPI?
Yes.
So do they update their website, and did they pass on updates to you, or how do you know if there are further changes to it?
I'm not the main contact for CCTI in our business, so that one I'm afraid I can't answer.
Okay, I was going to ask you to name the 11 clauses, but I won't bother with that.
After we failed on 5.
If I can come back to you tomorrow on that one.
Headlines in a month's time. Okay, has anyone else got an experience of CCPI that they want to share, or just how it's been perceived in the industry from what they've heard?
So I think it feels like it's come out of the dry lining and insulation sector and is only just coming into the merchanting horizon, really.
It's not mandated, is it?
No, it's not. And we only became aware of it probably 6 months ago. And we started looking at it and what impact it may or may not have. But we've not got to the stage of actioning anything yet. And I think quite a few people will be in that. From a general merchant perspective, that's where they're going to be at.
Where the general perception is from everybody around this table that it needs to be brought in. And as the person who's experienced it, I mean, it's working for you as a company. Do you think it'll be adopted by the wider industry eventually?
I think eventually, yeah, it's, as always with these things, when it's not mandated, yeah, it's where does it fit in people's hierarchy. And as a manufacturer, I think a lot of the manufacturers embraced it sooner because as a manufacturer, that's high my priorities. That's about me and my data.
I think it's mandated for you as well. I didn't think it was a...
Well, we became aware through our customers, actually. So it's when you've got customer end draw, if you like, saying, yeah, we're looking to implement this in our supply chain. You're a part of our supply chain. Please, can you look at this? Yeah. It's a very different conversation to, here's something that you can join if you fancy it. It is a different thing. Yeah.
This will impact your ability to trade with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, all right. That's the 6 questions gone through. And we're all in good time as well, which is always nice. I'd like to end by asking each of you about the takeaways from today's debate. What have you learned? What you're going to share with other people? Just general thoughts about the last couple of hours. So, do you already thinking time, or do you want to?
I'll go straight off the bat, Tib.
Yeah.
I think for me the clear thing that's come out of today is that there is a strong recognition of the partnership, that there is towards making some of these things a reality between the manufacturers and the merchant community. I think it's very well understood that we both have very important roles to play that neither of us can fulfill on the other's behalf.
Yeah.
And that gives me a high level of hope that we will get to where we want to end up with this stuff. But the other thing that's come out for me is that, under no illusion, it is a journey, and it's going to take a consistent approach in order for us to realise that.
I think you have to echo that in a way. And also the opportunity side of it, we shouldn't lose sight of, because it is for those that actually tackle some of these issues and can then demonstrate that to their customer base who also need to tackle those issues. Yeah. There is a market opportunity, as well as all the... You tend to think of regulation as a bad thing when you're a business. Sometimes there's very good reasons behind it, as there is with this. However, poorly, I will use the word, some of it's been implemented. The kind of direction of travel is the right direction of travel. Yeah. And I think if we embrace that as an industry and see it as an opportunity to get better, and think more medium to long term, and deepen the partnerships with manufacturers and all of those things, I think that's the way we have to try and approach it.
Yeah.
I think it's reinforced the fact that there is no shortage of information, knowledge, and the content that is required to help with the upskilling. I think it's been a really productive conversation around how do we get that from where it lives, notionally I would argue mostly in the manufacturer space, into where it needs to be, which is the guys on the tools to do the job and install it. Yeah.
Okay, tough for the electoral points. But no, can I just say, I agree now. I think the other bit that has also resonated for me out of today is that when we actually take time out to sit down and have some of these discussions, the amount of different ideas and ways forward that have come out of this sort of discussion today, how inspiring that can be, and how useful that can be. So it's almost, I guess, the bit for me after this is how do we keep these discussions going and absolutely convert these ideas and the working together and that collaboration into action and results that make a difference. So I guess that, yeah.
Well, I think there's
good
four
debate.
merchants, all of whom, if you approached afterwards and said, right, come on, let's try this, I think there's not one here that would say, yes, I'll give it a go.
Yeah, no, great. And it's about, it's about making that happen. Agreed.
I thought the food was fantastic.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
I was going to say that. Written the headline.
Army marches on his stomach.
Do try me, Michelle. No, it's been a very enlightening day actually with afternoon because, you came, you listened, and I think our relationships should be so much stronger. Skill shortage is a massive thing. I really am looking forward to see that Canaf lorry 40-foot truck training school behind coming into my yard and giving us an open day. But yes, I think we all have to take away today what's going on right now and do our bit towards, making it better.
Yeah.
We need to, or else we're going to be in trouble. Labour are not going to get what we want. There's no chance. So we got to do what we can do to stay strong businesses. So, very good day. Thank you.
I'm going to echo all of those. No, but I do think coming from this, there's a lot of knowledge around the table. But I think we're at early stages of quite a few of these things. And we're in danger that we're not getting enough of that message down to staff. And whatever we're doing with it has got to be done as simply as possible. So moving forward, we've got to be careful not to over-regulate, overburden, and give too much information. Like there is so much data, as you've talked about. You can have data overload and miss the point. And I think it's at this level going, right, I need to give that bit of information to my people on the counter that are going to reach RMI White Van Man, that are going to be, it's going to have an impact on my business, as opposed to going, I know all this stuff and put it over there. And I think that's what we've got to be very careful with. And while you guys are trailblazing with the CCPI and on a journey and doing that sort of thing, I've got to take back and think what is meaningful and helpful to my people on the ground, customer facing, and to my customers, and what benefit that way. And I think that is a constant challenge with regulations coming out and that happening. But it's putting that into bite-sized chunks that are right for my team and customers. So, and I think that's been useful learning that today.
Okay, the old idea of the debate was to get everybody talking. I think we're all singing from the same hymn sheet as far as the issues that have been debated today. I just think maybe you need to hold more events such as this within the industry, regardless of the topic. I think once you held one of these, you can't let it stand still. You've got to keep moving and evolving.
Keep it constant.
And what we'd like to do at BMN is to actually host more of these anyway, because it just gives people opportunity to travel in, hear what merchants and manufacturers are saying, swap ideas, and then for the benefit of the industry, move forward.